I could go into the ocean at night with a 3-prong and spear a fish and clean it and cook it and gut it and all that kind of stuff. My uncle used to take us all night diving, which is still one of my favorite things ever. So I do a few different things on Twitch. I do a snack stream. Sundays are my favorite days because I get to snack on stuff. So the idea is that I just try anything that I haven't had before or new snacks. So if it's like a new flavor of cereal or Pop-Tarts comes out with their new flavors or Oreos. So I try all of those and then I review it and talk about it and chat with the people in chat that are watching. And then I also try anything that I miss because growing up in Hawaii, you probably realized that when you got there, the food is pretty different. So there's a lot of stuff that I just grew up never eating. I grew up eating a lot of sushi and Asian food and Asian snacks and lihimoi and Spam. I love Spam. So I missed so many snacks. I didn't have my first cannoli until I was like 26.
Hi, it's Jasmine. You know, that girl who did you know what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy Train with me, Jasmine St. Clair. All aboard!
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, let's just share everything.
Whatever,
Worse lives better. I was at this bachelorette party a couple of weekends ago. Oh my God, I forgot to eat. And I was at a wine tasting, right? So I'm out there sharing that, talking about oversharing, guys, by the way, which you guys should be doing more of. Yeah, let me tell you, I thought I was living my best life, but damn, within 2 hours, I was not in my best life ever. It was
Was it videoed? Is that one of those situations where it's videoed and you look back afterwards and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and photographs, because next day, like my friend is tagging me on Facebook. I'm like, wait a second, when was I wearing a tiara? Wait, I put $10 in the back. I put $10 in a guy's pants. It was like an off-duty officer or like a fireman. I'm like, are you a stripper? So it was pretty bad.
I love that.
You're like so adorable. Now
you're so sweet.
No, it's just Xia Anderson is from one of my favorite places in Hawaii called Hilo.
Yes.
People there were so hospitable. How long did you live in Hilo?
I was born there and then I lived there until I was 25. I think I was 25 when I left, 24, something like that. So yeah, and then I lived in LA for 7 years and now I've been in New Jersey for about a year.
So 25. Okay, I would still card you if I saw you at a bar. I would not be serving alcohol.
You're amazing.
God. So yeah, I wrestled in Hilo. Then I remember having like escargot, like garlic escargot, and staying at this really cool resort, and the water was amazing. So what did you do in Hilo for work? Like, what do people do there aside from barbecue, I guess, or I don't know.
So yeah, it's, everybody has the usual jobs. Like we're in high school, my friend worked at a smoke shop or / CD shop. It was called CD Wizard, but they also had like pipes and bongs and stuff like that. And I worked at a Hawaiian food place called Island Infusion. It's not open anymore, but yeah, you kind of start doing that sort of stuff. And then I got into working at gyms. So I worked for, I don't know if you're familiar with MMA at all, but I worked for an MMA fighter, UFC fighter, BJ Penn, because we're from the same town. So I worked at his gym for like 6 years. Definitely wasn't like a career job, but I worked there for so long just because I loved it so much. And you get spoiled working in an MMA gym because I got to train everything for free. And boy, that kind of stuff is expensive. Like you're looking at, if you want to train MMA or jiu-jitsu or things like that, you're looking at like at least $150 a month, at least, depending on what kind of gym it is. But yeah, so I did that for 6 years. And then I worked at a bed and breakfast where I did housekeeping. It was like a resort style bed and breakfast. They had a bunch of rooms. I would cook the breakfast and I did housekeeping. So all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people that work. My best friend worked at a resort too. She was a manager at a fancy restaurant there. So there's a lot of that kind of jobs, or you could get government jobs, or people own businesses because you got to feed everybody there. So restaurants and things like that. Sort of the normal stuff, I guess. Nothing like.
Was there I want to say that I went to a volcano museum after the wrestling show because I wrestled there. And then one day after the show, we went to the volcano museum. And then it was one of those things where it was such a long day because we were doing meet and greets and stuff.
Mhm.
Then at the end of the day, just sitting at that steakhouse overlooking the volcano museum. Please tell me that's still there. And what was it like actually growing up there and then coming to the mainland?
It was a culture shock coming to the mainland. It was a big, and I went to LA first. So it was at least LA is a bit of a mixing pot, but it still is not the same. Hawaii is so different. It's such a melting pot of different cultures, which is really cool. And we adopt a lot from different cultures. Like I've never wearing shoes in the house to me is still so weird. Just like, but that's like a Japanese custom. And so there's lots of different things that they sort of pick up. So it's a real mishmash. Which I loved. It was a really cool place to grow up. Super different, definitely. By the time I was 7, I could go into the ocean at night with a 3-prong and spear a fish and clean it and cook it and gut it and all that kind of stuff. My uncle used to take us all night diving, which is still one of my favorite things ever. So yeah, it's just I think that there's cool experiences that you have growing up like that there that you probably couldn't have everywhere else. And like you said, the ocean there. I'm so spoiled. I got into the ocean once when I was living in California, one time, and I was like, this is terrible. And never again. It's so cold. You can't see the bottom. It's all murky. So you do get spoiled with that for sure. So that was a really big culture shock. But I really liked growing up there. It made me into a very, I like to say, a delightful weirdo. So that was nice. I feel like you asked me one other thing and I'm so sorry. I completely forgot what it was.
No, you just answered it. Like, what was it
Okay.
like growing up there and then coming here? Yeah, of course. I just don't know why you even jumped into the. First of all,
It was a
which
mistake.
part of LA did you jump into the ocean? That's the first question. Was it Venice? Was it Orange County?
It was Santa Monica. We went to this like beach on Santa Monica. Yeah, it was not good.
I live in Santa Monica. That's
Oh,
crazy.
do you?
Oh my God. Did you get a cootie shot after?
I should have. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, I'll get in the water. And I got it. And I was like, oh, it's so cold and so terrible. But it's a nice beach. But like you said, it'll never quite be the same. Oh, that was the other thing you asked me, the volcano museum. I don't know if it's still there because I've been gone for a while, but yes, there is a volcano museum and you can see it shows you all the like different a'a and pahoehoe, which are the different kinds of lava depending on how it flows. And then it shows you, I think they're called Job's tears are a plant. Pele's tears. And then there's like hair strand lava that if you get stuck in your feet, it hurts like a bitch. I went there on a field trip. I remember that.
Oh my God, that seems so much cooler going to a field trip doing that. I don't know what, I didn't grow up in California, but like we go to field trips in the museum in New York when I was a kid, but I think I'd much
That's
rather
cool.
go to a volcano museum. That's cool. And what you're doing now is pretty interesting. So I read like very little about you. People know that I don't want to read too much about my guests because it takes away from it. It just becomes like an interrogate, I don't know, like an interrogation or just the same stupid questions over and over. So you do gaming?
I do. I stream
Oh
on
my
Twitch.
God. So tell me about that because I heard people make money from that. And I don't want to know that part of it because of the IRS crap, but yeah.
Well, people do make money, and I'll say that I don't make a lot of money on Twitch. It's very I make some money. It's very much like, oh, okay, this pays a bill, like it pays my internet bill and like some of my streaming service bills. So but people do make ridiculous money on there. But it's also really oversaturated market to get into because everybody's on Twitch, everybody wants to be. But yeah, so I do a few different things on Twitch. I do a snack stream. Sundays are my favorite days because I get to snack on stuff. So the idea is that I just try anything that I haven't had before or new snacks. So if it's like a new flavor of cereal or Pop-Tarts comes out with their new flavors or Oreos. So I try all of those and then I review it and talk about it and chat with the people in chat that are watching. And then I also try anything that I miss because growing up in Hawaii, you probably realized that when you got there, the food is pretty different. So there's a lot of stuff that I just grew up never eating. I grew up eating a lot of sushi and Asian food and Asian snacks and lihimoi and spam. I love spam. So I missed so many snacks. I didn't have my first cannoli until I was like 26. I was like, what's a cannoli? I know you're from the East Coast, right? You're like, oh my God. And my husband's from Brooklyn too. So he was the one, he's like, you've never had a what? And so he took me into Brooklyn to get my first cannoli. It was magical. So I still, and like, even as an adult, I'm still discovering all these new things that I haven't had and new foods. So it's really fun to try stuff, even fast food places, because the Big Island Hilo doesn't have a lot of chain restaurants. We have one Outback Steakhouse in Kona, and that was it. Like, we had the usual fast food, Taco Bell, McDonald's, that kind of stuff, but no Fridays, no Red Lobster, none of that. So now that I'm here, I'm like, I want to go to Fridays. I want to go to Applebee's. Like, I'm such basically a child. So I do the snack stream, and then I do a workout stream because I eat so much. I need to work out. And then I do a gaming stream. So it's fun because you can kind of do whatever you want. And then I just depends what I want to play. Right now I'm playing a survival game with a friend called Green Hell. That's really cool. But yeah, some people, there's Amaranth is the top female streamer. Not the top streamer by far, but you probably heard of her. She also does OnlyFans. She's like very big in the gaming space.
I don't follow that.
She's one of those that, yeah, like, I guess if you're in the Twitch ecosystem, but I think said that she was making $50,000 to $100,000 a month on Twitch.
Oh yeah.
And $1 million a month on OnlyFans. And I was like,
does she pay her taxes?
I think she does. I hope.
Yeah, for her sake. That's so true about Hilo with the different foods. Like, I grew up on an island for the first 6 years of my life. I lived in St. Croix. That's where I'm from.
Oh, okay.
So I get island fever, but we didn't have quite as many choices. And I mean, even though I went back there a couple of years ago, I see the differences in foods, and I'm so grateful for it. Now, since you only had a cannoli once, have you had Italian cheesecake or ricotta cheesecake?
So no, I've definitely eaten a lot of cannolis. When we first moved to the East Coast, because I've been here for a little over a year, I think, year and a half now. I gained 13 pounds because
how much?
Just 13, which is, some people are like, that's not a lot, but I'm 5'2". It's a lot. I'm small. I didn't realize it because I was eating so much. So cannolis all the time, rainbow cookies. Oh my, just anything, pies. I haven't had an Italian cheesecake yet, though. That's next time. I have to try one. I don't know how I haven't.
It's healthier for you. I'm not encourage anyone to go out there and buy like a bunch of it in excess. I could have like 2-3 slices of that in one sitting. So it's made with ricotta cheese instead of cream cheese. It's really light and lemony. And I think you have to have that. We had rainbow cookies. So just ideas for snacks, people. Or have you ever had, so when I lived in London, I'd have vanilla ice cream with peanut butter and cornflakes.
That sounds amazing.
Right. So that was
my
just
God.
like a snack my uncle created. But I noticed that girl who has Milk Bar Toasty, they always have like cereal bits in it. It's not like my like snack from London. It's way better mine, but you got to try it. So speaking of snacking, you've got to try it one day. Like, please.
Okay.
Just for me, and then for your fans to try it. But that's very interesting. So many people find ways to make money off of this, but I respect what you're doing. Because obviously you don't look like the typical gamer. I don't get these games. I don't know. I got to join one of them one day, I think. I don't know how to do this. And I'm afraid like once I get into it, I'll get like sucked in because I don't have addictions in life except motorcycles and anything crazy. But this, I think I have to try. It's Sunday, so you got to try like Cadbury's Easter eggs for Easter. Now, what was it like going to New Jersey from LA? Like, how the heck did that happen? Like Jersey of all places. I'm sorry, I'm from the city. I shouldn't say that.
No, it's okay. We were living in LA and my husband hated it there. And things were starting to get a little bit more rough as we were there. And then we were like right down the street from where a lot of the rioting was happening, like literally on the same
Where were you?
We were right by the Grove. Miracle
Okay,
Mile
and
area.
I lived right by the van store when all the riots. So I saw it from my window.
Okay. Yeah,
awesome.
It was crazy. And he was very much like, I just want to be away from the like he just wanted to be somewhere quiet. And I think that things had gotten bad enough because he's from Brooklyn and he didn't want to be in New York City either. When we first talked about moving back to the East Coast, we are going to move to Astoria. And then after everything happened and crime started to go up, he's like, you know what? I just want to be somewhere super quiet. I want to be somewhere that's like chilled out. So we're in actually a good spot because it's like 40-minute drive into the city, which is not horrible. I can live with that. It's not a far drive and it is very quiet. It's nice. And you get to drive to the grocery store and there's always parking. And, you know, it's interesting the things that when you live in a city for a while, driving around is a pain in the ass. Parking's a pain in the ass. There's a lot of traffic, and there are definitely things I miss about it. But yeah, he was really, the last 5 years we were in LA, he was miserable. And we wanted to move to the East Coast anyway. And it was just during the pandemic, we're like, you know what? Now's the time. So we moved to New Jersey, and we moved in November, and it was my first winter. And this past winter was my second winter. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I love the place. I love the people here. Everybody's really nice. I love going into the city. I've been having a great time doing a lot of what I've been doing, but the winters, man, oh my God.
Yeah, welcome.
I know, it's so cold. I'm so cold all of the time.
Well, yeah, you're like super tiny. It's 80 degrees out, and I still have the heater on sometimes. I was in Miami one time, and the heater was on at like 3, 4 in the morning. I put it on at night before I went to bed, and it was like 82 degrees out. I wake up at like 3, 4 in the morning. It's like 100 degrees in the room. I'm like, what psycho put the heater? Oh, never mind. That was me. That would be me. So did you?
I'm with you.
It's yeah. So what else do you do besides you do the Twitch thing? I know that you do. You're a comedian as well, correct?
No, I've actually never done any stand-up. No, I
oh
just
my
have,
God.
like,
I admire you even more now, because every single, like, there's so many girls, with the exception of like Aaliyah Janine and Angela Yee and those girls, they're just like, yeah, I'm a comedian. I'm a comedian. It's like, okay, please just don't do any rape jokes, because those are just really getting overdone now. Like in LA, you go to the Comedy Store, the first thing these girls say, so my uncle raped me. It's like, okay, I'm just like leaving the show now.
Really? I haven't seen
They
that.
do this shit all the time. And then I finally went up to a girl after an improv class who I saw at the Comedy Store. I went to her show, big mistake. I'm like, why do you people do this shit about rape? It's like, it's just so boring. It's not that, I mean, that didn't happen to me, so I'm not traumatized, but it's boring. Oh, we just need a safe space. Okay, so you want to be around a bunch of drunks talking about being raped. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's one of those, it's one of those things that it's not easy to joke about. I think that certain people, I've heard some really funny ones, and certain people can make it really funny. But I agree, when something gets overdone to a point where you're like, okay, I've heard this 30 times. This is really boring. Come up with new material. I've heard people mention that a lot, not just with rape jokes, but with also like, they talk about how women comedians only talk about sex. And so it gets where they're like, okay, I've heard this. I've heard this 1,000 times before. But no, I've never done any comedy, but I've sort of found myself on these comedy podcasts, and it's been so much fun because I'm such a big comedy fan.
Yeah.
And then going from hosting to doing podcasting, and then finding myself sort of in this comedy world. I not accidentally stumbled into it, but I had reached out to, do you know who Jim Norton is?
I love him to death. I love those guys. I was on their show last year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Jim is fucking great. He's hysterical. He's so sweet. I love Jim. But he has a character called Chip Chipperson.
Yep.
And I've been a big fan of Chip for a long time. And I got a chance to be on Chip once when he was out in LA. And I wasn't supposed to be on. The person that was running AfterBuzz was like, hey, I know you're a big Chip fan. They're here recording. Do you want to be on the show? And I was like, yes. So I was so excited. And then Chip retired, and he brought it back because of the pandemic. And so everybody was inside all the time. So we started doing these Zoom shows. So I emailed him. My husband was like, just email, just ask. You're already on once. Jim's really nice. He'll probably say yes. His email is public. So I was like, okay. So I emailed him, and I emailed him a few times because he was like, yeah, I remember you. Of course, I'd love to have you on. So I ended up just kind of being on Chip regularly because the response was so good. The Chip fans were so sweet. So I started being on it regularly. And then from doing Chip, I started getting asked to do other things. And then it just sort of branched out from there. And occasionally I'll also ask to be on things. Like if there's a podcast I really want to be on, because what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no, you know?
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised if you say yes to some people. Believe me, and I learned the hard way.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'm really like, before the pandemic, I had a one-woman show, and it came back like last year in New York. I'm going back again, New York in September to do it, and then Boston. So yeah, sometimes when you go in these, you get people that just don't know what they're doing or don't know how to speak to. And I'm sure you get hit on all the time in some kind of stupid thing that someone says. But yeah, it's happened. Do you get any stalkers from the video games, or do you ever see that one episode of Law and Order where there's a guy who's on the other side of this whole thing as a player as well. And he like goes out like killing girls through that. Okay. So it's not
Sounds about right.
it sounds about right. But do you ever get anything like that? I mean, do you get them joining you on Instagram or anything like that? Because that's kind of weird.
Luckily, yeah. Luckily, I get, for the most part, people are very, very nice and very, very kind. And I haven't gotten too much. Of course, there's the odd person that's going to be a dickhead. I just mute them on Twitter. I'm like, you're being an asshole. I don't need this. So you just mute those people on Twitter. I mean, you can't escape that. But for the most part, it's been really good. I haven't gotten to, now this, of course, I'm still in a small level. Like I don't have a massive following. I'm still building. I'm still sort of new at this, but there are girls, again, I bring up Amaranth because she's so popular. Mm-hmm. She has been, have you ever heard of, well, Tim Pool's talked about this too, but getting rated
as in,
yeah. So
RATE or RAI?
RAID. So whoa. They get swatted, it's called.
I hope you're enjoying the ride on Krazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. So if you are, do me a huge, huge favor. Woo! Please go ahead. Go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, but Apple's great. Give me a nice rating and review. Send me a screenshot, and I promise you I will send you a special goodie bag. So please rate and review Krazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. And in exchange for that, once I see the DM with the review and your name and address, I will get those gift bags out to you. I'm not going to tell you what's in it.